not a cute space. I just
Yeah.
want to make sure we're aligned because I'm interpreting it as the space where you experience a lot of pain and suffering. Am I getting that
Exactly.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
Welcome back to In Their Own Words, Running Edition. We are joined by Amy Katz, who is recognized by Erin Clark for being one of Erin's early friends in Missoula and great friends today. In this episode, Amy and I talk a lot about limits, physical ones and mental ones, and the experience of what it's like learning about ourselves when we reach our limits. Then we switch over to the 5 life questions and get to hear Amy's unique experience through very relatable circumstances. A little heads up, I've decided to edit pauses in the conversation a little less than before. That's because it gives a better representation of how tricky these questions, and frankly, talking with a stranger, really is. I pause a lot in my conversations with people to give space for curiosity and to limit the chance we jump to a conclusion that doesn't make someone feel heard. So if the pauses feel awkward, bear with me. I promise that if they're there, they're worth it. With that, let's kick it over to the interview. Today I'm joined by Amy Katz, who we recently heard honored by Erin Clark on In Their Words, Runners Edition. I'm very excited to learn about Amy with everybody today. And Amy, why don't you just kind of kick us off by telling us where you're at in life today?
Yeah. Great. Where I'm at in life. I live in Missoula, Montana. It is currently like -10 degrees out and extremely windy, and no one has gone outside for days on end. Where I'm at is basically like wanting it to be spring pretty bad. My day job here is I work for a very small conservation nonprofit that does private land conservation work, and I do all of their kind of spatial analysis, spatial ecology stuff, and it's pretty fun. Currently super into ceramics. That's about it.
Right on. What is what is spatial ecology?
Yeah,
Am I saying that
basically,
right? Yeah.
yeah, I do a lot of mapping and like GIS work for them, and a lot of that is then used to like spatially prioritize specific conservation action on the ground or leverage specific funding opportunities, etc.
Okay.
Yeah,
Very cool. All right. And then tell us a little bit about, how are your mentals today?
they're pretty good. Yeah. I grew up in Southwest Colorado where it's just sunny 360 days out of the year. And
Right.
so I struggle here in the winters. And I think especially this time of year, it's like you just really feeling ready to have a little more sunshine back. But
Gotcha.
February is always a good month. Like the days are getting longer. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I think I'm in a good spot.
So really looking forward to spring.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And then tell us also, how are you involved with the running community nowadays?
Yeah, so I grew up also ski racing, but Nordic. So
Yeah.
that was always my primary sport. And
Yeah.
post college, I kind of picked up running a little bit more. Like it was always something that was one. It was like we just were kind of brainwashed into thinking that we were all really bad at running because our way of running was like we'd go out and run for maybe 4 hours, but it would be like very slow, and that was just kind of like the Nordy shuffle, as we called it.
Uh-huh.
And then post college, I just started to like be in communities in which I had more people that were runners. And
Yeah.
since moving to Missoula, I think it's just become a much bigger part of my life because everyone does it. Like it's such an easy way to build community here and to make friends. And it's the most ideal way to interact with someone. Like you have this uninterrupted time together,
Yeah.
and there's just no way around like having to talk.
Yeah.
Um, and also you're not face to face with someone, which I think sometimes is helpful, especially when you're first getting to know someone.
Yeah.
It makes those conversations a lot more comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah, no kidding. That's a very subtle technique.
Yeah,
But sometimes when you kind of don't have to face like the reaction
right.
or yeah, it's just a little easier to speak your mind.
Totally.
Um, yeah. So it sounds to me like running is more of a hobby than it is like a training mechanism.
Yeah, I'm in like a currently kind of a weird spot with it because I'm coming back from a big injury that happened last year.
Yeah.
And so I think things might be different at this moment in time if that weren't the case. But I'm kind of like looking forward to the summer and the trail running season as just a way to like get back into it and be able to get my dog outside and be able to connect with people. Hopefully
Yeah.
I'll get back to the point where I'm running some races and stuff, but
Yeah.
um, yeah, I'm not quite
Yeah.
in that mode right now.
Yeah. I mean, that's an excellent time to get to ask this question, not in the sense where I'm trying to add pressure, but in the sense that like I think a lot of people will be able to relate to feeling very far away from even maybe setting goals, you know?
Yeah,
And I'd be curious as far as what are um your goals with running, and how far away do they feel?
yeah. Um, I mean, I've always been like curious about it just because it is such a new sport for me.
Yeah.
Like I'm curious about my potential and about like how far I could push it because I think in ski racing, like I've explored it enough that I have a sense of like what that looks like, but running is like, every time I do a
Everything's new.
workout or something, I can feel myself getting faster. Like it's just a steeper learning curve right at the beginning. And so
Uh-huh.
I think I'm just like I don't think I even know enough to be able to be like I don't like have long-term goals. I think I'm just really curious about pushing myself and what that looks like. And
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of people, especially in a place like Missoula, that are really into running ultras and doing really
Yeah.
long stuff. And I'm a little more interested in this acute suffering of like how well can you handle living in that space for
Mm,
an X amount of time. Um, I just think like from an intellectual standpoint, it's very interesting. And
yeah.
I think it's very surprising sometimes, like what you are capable of and how you might not know that and how something
Mm,
like running could show that to you.
not a cute space. I just
Yeah.
want to make sure we're aligned because I'm interpreting it as the space where you experience a lot of pain and suffering. Am I getting that
Exactly.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, and is that uh when you make it acute, are you referencing just like, short distance, maxed out, that kind of feeling?
Right. Right. Like I
Hmm.
think we're talking like less than 2 hours, maybe,
Yeah.
or like what it feels like to do a hill climb or
Yeah.
something like that. That's just more. I mean, I think you also encounter limits, obviously, when you do a long race,
Yeah.
but it's just a little bit different in that feeling and like in how what living in that space feels like in those longer
Yeah.
ones compared to the shorter ones.
Yeah. Jumping on the first tangent of the day, encountering limits. Gonna posit my own just outlook on life here, uh, as a centering point, or maybe a more relating point, I should say. But I believe that life is not about happiness. It's not to say that I don't think happiness is not valuable. I just think that when you over-index on happiness, you start to look at life like what you can take from it and not what you can make of it. Um, so I think I think life is about moments of astonishment. And those moments of astonishment are those aha moments, is what I like to call them. Um, and those aha moments are always on the other side of some limit. I don't think. that this fascination with limits is something that, if I'm just taking a guess here, I don't think that it's something that has just come from running. I'm willing to bet that it's something that you have grown with. Where else in life do you get that kind of inspiration, that push in life to just be like, no, yeah, I'm looking to push the limits?
Yeah. Just another quick tangent.
Yeah.
Great book by Paul Bloom, if you haven't read it, called The
Yeah.
Sweet Spot. Basically, there's been a lot of psychologists and a lot of philosophers argue about this topic of happiness, but this is basically like the meat of his argument is that there is so much that is missed when you categorize happiness as like the end
The
all
end
be all,
goal.
and part of
Yes.
that is like suffering, and
Yes.
is like how that creates meaning in different ways. Anyways, great
Yeah.
book.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I really, this is something that I value a lot in all aspects. Like it's just how my personality is. Like it's how I function in a work environment too,
Yeah.
is like that I'm interested in how, like I'm interested when I'm being really challenged and being really pushed and having to problem solve and having to like really encounter a lot of struggle.
Mm.
And that's when I find myself most captured in a specific project or a specific task. And something that I just am getting over the hump with, another area is, so I tore my ACL in March of last year, so it's almost been a year. And I'm just now having that kind of perspective to be able to look back and say like, wow, for so many months people tell you these cliche things like, oh, you're going to come out so much stronger on the other side, and for so long I was like, oh my God, give me a break. Like, it just sucks to be injured. It
Yeah.
doesn't always need to have like a shiny message at the end.
Right.
But recently what I have thought about a lot is looking back on it, how like there's something really gratifying about just looking back and being like, I made it through that, and it sucked and it was really hard, but like kind of like proud of myself that I did it.
Yeah.
So that's been a recent occurrence, I think, in which you just feel yourself struggling really, really hard, like mostly on an emotional level, and being able to come out on the other side of that and feel, for the most part, like intact. I think there's something interesting in that.
Oh boy, Amy, we could end up having a long call. My mind splits into two directions here, right? First, I'm curious. I'm going to say them both, so hopefully I don't forget them. First is, when was that first time when you had that experience of overcoming struggle that really resonated with, and just, it looks to me like became part of your DNA? Was it something that was nurtured? Was it something by nature? Or was it something that was like you just fell into um, by accident? And then the second part would be, you said, to come out on the other side still intact. Interesting that the success criteria then for you is to be intact,
Just
which is like
existing.
you're right. Is that half glass full, half glass empty? I don't know. So I want to get into that as well. But
Okay.
first, let's go with yeah. How, like, how early can you trace this back to?
Right. My dad is just like, my mom always just rolls her eyes at us. Like, we'll be at a restaurant and we'll both order the same dish, and she's like,
Yeah.
you're just your father's daughter. And my dad, I would say, is very much this way of like, he works really hard. He likes that feeling. And so I think a lot of it came from my family
Yeah.
and the way that I was raised. But I think I think maybe part of it came from like, this is gonna sound like self-deprecating, which is not how I mean it to sound, but like I think part of it came from just being like mediocre at things. Like in sports in particular, like I was never like amazing at skiing. But what was reinforced to me over time was that the thing that I was really good at was working hard and like really putting my energy behind something. And
Yeah.
you just get a lot of positive feedback from that because you work a little harder, you start going to the gym, you start like spending like a few more hours a week in training, and then all of a sudden you get better.
Yeah.
And to me, that was just like a very concrete loop of feedback. So I see a lot of that coming from like ski racing and from just being an intense kid from a young age. Like, I was in middle school and I was like having my parents drive me to the gym at 5 a.m. They were probably like, oh my God, what is wrong with my kid? So that's my best guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd be curious what my parents had to say about it too, but
yeah.
And to your second question, again, I know that it feels so insignificant. Like having an injury like this feels so insignificant in the scheme of like things that can happen to you as a human that can make you just like completely fall apart. But I've been lucky that I haven't had a lot of those big life events. And so for me, this was one of them. And I had moments of being like just totally like a puddle of a human. And so I think when you're in kind of like an emotional black hole like that, like you really don't have confidence that you lose sight of like what reality is or what like being you feels like. And so I think returning to a place in which you just like feel like yourself. And I imagine, I mean, it's the same type of feeling that I hear my partner who has struggled with depression his whole life. It's the same type of kind of feeling that he describes, in which like you just know that you had like a baseline, like this is me at my core. And then when you're not there, it's really hard to reconcile that like you could get back to that place. And when you eventually do get back there, I think a good way of explaining how that feels is like you just feel like you are like a whole person. Does that make sense?
Beautifully said. Sometimes even during these, I mean, I love getting to meet people. You've probably gathered that as much.
Totally.
But I think I've been doing this for a long time, just talking to strangers. If somebody catches my ear for some reason, I'll ask for coffee. It was only recently that somebody pushed me to make a podcast series out of it. And I guess now, as my ear is tuning towards how to make a good podcast episode, every once in a while I just hear something that's like, somebody needs to hear that. Someone needs to hear that. And it even encourages me for why I'm doing this, because I'm not somebody who likes attention. I used to be, for sure. If you tell Erin that, she'll be like, what? But I'm not somebody who likes attention today. It's not really, I find that it's not a positive feedback loop towards the goals that I've got set for myself, So I was very reluctant to do this, but every once in a while I hear something, and for you to just get to explain what it is, the significance of feeling whole, with the context and the experience that you have had, and then also living close to it, I can see people on both sides, people that are in that, and people who don't understand that will learn from that. And so just like already, thank you. Because that was brilliant, and it just I'm thanking you for your vulnerability, because that's what it takes, to really give the perspective that other people don't have. So yeah. Okay, hold on, let me figure out where I'm going next. This idea of pushing limits we'll just circle back to briefly. Is the gratification just basically throwing yourself at something new and seeing how you can come back to intact?
Yeah, this is okay. So again, back to this book.
Yeah. Okay.
This is like a central question is like, what is it? Like, to give you an example, I go to this gym in which I sometimes do these horrible workouts on the assault bike.
Uh-huh.
You know what the assault bike
Yes.
is?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
like awful. It's awful
Yeah.
just even getting on there.
Yes.
Um,
I will
and
actually just take a quick pause for people that
yeah,
don't know. An assault bike is an air resistant bike that, yeah, it looks, and then when you start, it feels very simple because it's an air resistant bike. But it is very taxing, and it's designed to increase your like, is lactic acid the right word? Right.
yeah, I mean, sure.
Yeah.
Basically, the resistance gets harder the harder you go on it.
Yes. Perfect. Yes. Thank you.
Horrible.
Yeah.
And you use your arms too, which makes it worse because it's
Right.
like a full body situation.
Yes.
Um, anyways, I've been talking a lot to my partner about like, he's like, what is it about because his argument is like the only reason you like doing these workouts is because on the other side you feel good.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And that's part of the argument that this guy makes in this book too.
Mm.
But then on the flip side of it, like my pushback is always like, well, yes, like that's true. Like you obviously get like you have a good feeling after you do a hard workout. Part of it is that you prove to yourself exactly what you just said. You prove to yourself that you can go to this like really horrible place and then you can hang out there for longer than you think.
Yeah.
And then you can come out on the other side and like still like be alive.
Yeah.
I still think there's like a little piece missing that is just liking the feeling of existing in that space. But that particular one I think is harder to make a logical argument about. So I'm not sure if it's real because it might just be associated with the other two.
Right. All right. Talking about limits, this is going to be a fun segue. Tell me about maps. Tell me about cartography. When did this start? Was it a passion before it was a job?
It's my side gig, I would say. It started because something that I feel like has been missing from my life is like some sort of artistic outlet. And you know those activities in which you just can like completely lose yourself in them.
Yeah.
And I think for a lot of athletes, people will say, "Oh, it's running."
It's running, right?
I don't feel that way.
Yeah.
Like I love it and all, but like maybe skiing, you know, like on a powder day, sure. Definitely like running doesn't quite do it for me. But like doing artistic things does.
Yeah, totally.
And when I was in grad school and I was doing my GIS certificate, I had this really good mentor who was just open the world of like, oh, this is not just a tool you use to make conservation decisions. This is a form of art. And just being open to that world, I was like, oh my God, this is like a perfect kind of mesh of my interest. Like I'm supporting people and nonprofits in the community who are doing great work, but it's also just a big art project.
Yeah.
And so I literally just made an Instagram and started posting things on there. And then all of a sudden people were asking me for projects and it just kind of happened. Like I didn't really expect it, but it's been a really fun outlet and yeah, I don't know. Maybe eventually it'll be my full-time job. We'll see.
Yeah, right on. And for the tens of listeners that we've got, what's that Instagram handle where they can go see some of these works?
Katz Cartographics. is my name.
Photographics. Right on. And we'll be sure to throw that into the description, into the
Great.
episode. I do see a tie here, though. And, this could be reaching way too far here. But from exploring limits to mapping them and drawing
Yeah,
them.
sure.
Do
Love
you
it. That
see?
could be that could be my new motto. Maybe I need one of those.
Yeah. Yeah. Is it totally just like open mind flow state, or is there a sense of like challenge of like creating and defining limits as well in that?
Yeah, I think it might have been a little bit of a stretch, if I'm being
Yeah.
honest.
Sure. Sure. Yeah, we'll leave it at
Um,
that.
yeah, I would say it's more, I'm actually not super geographically gifted. Like,
Uh-huh.
the biggest arguments that we get into in the car is when I'm navigating because I'm so
Uh-huh.
bad at it. And I like don't know my left from my right. So some would argue that it's a little ironic that
Yeah.
this is my job, but here we are.
Here we are. All good. All right. Well, let's wrap up the we're gonna wrap up the running section with a set of running questions, and then we'll listen to what Erin has to say. And so when it comes to running, for me, we're just gonna it's just like a short list of 4 questions, and that is, let's start with, we're just describing your ideal run. Uh, so to kick us off here, tell us like, where is it? What's the climate like? Are you running with people? What's the time of day? Just kind of paint us a picture.
Yeah. Honestly, ideal run probably up Mount Jumbo, which is like 2 blocks from my house, which has a special place in my heart because it's so close and I do it
Uh-huh.
so often.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, probably just like a Friday afternoon. It's like 70 degrees and sunny and in the spring. And I have my little dog with me and probably, yeah, a few friends. Erin brings Poppy along.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Right on. What's cool about Mount Jumbo?
it is there. So there's this, there's two ways that you can go up. It's kind of like this situation, and then there's like one trail that goes to the top.
Okay.
It's just the perfect amount of, it's maybe only like 5 or 6 miles round trip. It's like a pretty short thing, but you get a good amount of a good view from the top. And the side, one of the trails that you can run up, we call it Goldilocks because it's like the perfect gradient of switchbacks that you
Uh-huh.
that you can run all of them.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then the final question, of course, I mean, you got to ask almost every athlete, is after an ideal run, what's going to follow with that ideal post-run meal?
Ugh, my favorite brewery in Missoula. It's called Imagination.
Yes.
Definitely a beer, probably a
Uh-huh.
sour,
Nice.
and probably some tacos from the food truck that's sitting right there.
Right on.
Yeah.
Sour beer, tacos, post-run views, Friday afternoon. Sounds like an awesome time. What a
Yeah.
picture.
It's a good time.
Yeah. Okay. So switching over to message from Erin.
Hey, Amy. I'm choosing to honor you this week because, funny to say at the age of 28, but I feel like you've really taught me how to be a better friend, and to ask the important questions and to like really, really listen to the answers. That's been really crucial for me, I think, in this past year. And when I was trying to figure out the brand I wanted to sign with, and just really trying to trust that I could leave something I was involved in and take on something new. I think you helped me kind of give me the courage to stand on my own 2 feet, and were really honest with me. So I honor you. Um, you've been such an awesome supporter when you're going through hard stuff and injuries, and you're still like an awesome supporter for me. So that's really special and really important. And I'm excited to hear your deep thoughts in this podcast.
What is your yeah, I mean, just tell us more about your reaction.
It's just really, it's not every day that I hear from her or from anyone really. Like, it's not every day that you hear from your friends, like, them telling you how much they mean to you. And so there's just something like very special about that. And man, we should just be doing it more to each other. It's something I always find myself doing is like, I say behind someone's back, like something nice about my friend. And I'm like, why am I saying this to someone else? Like, why am I not saying it to their face?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it goes both ways. And it's been fun to just like see her open up a little bit more and
Yeah.
be able to like talk about real stuff that's like really hard and have the space to do that, I think.
Yeah. Well, first, obviously, I totally agree with you. We should totally be doing this more. So let's use this podcast episode as inspo to please reach out to somebody and just tell them how you feel about them, how great they are. When you hear Erin, I mean, she speaks about you much like how, I previously talked about heart healers, people that help us find who we are by just sitting and reflecting with us. Yeah, does that resonate with you?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Like, I don't see myself in that role. I think sometimes I hear it more than I expect. And I wonder if it's like, I mean, maybe it's just that I know people that I would so much put in that category in a way that I don't identify myself as being, but obviously there's like a spectrum there. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I'm always happy when my friends value me in the way of like feeling that they can talk to me about things and that that I can like help them through stuff like that. So
I don't know how intentional it is, but just I'd really thank you for being you. Not saying, thank you for always serving people around you, but that's awesome. All right, well, we are gonna peel some layers back here now and get to know Amy on a little bit of a deeper level. And so we'll kick it off here with the first question, asking about core values. I love asking about core values because these are the things that, as you kind of talked about before, we can express ourselves by or through, and we just kind of lose sense of time, and this is how we are discovering ourselves at its core. So yeah, this question is, what are your top 3 core values?
Yeah, I think it's a tough question because I feel like it's not always the same. But no surprise that like something that I strive to be myself and also and that I really value in other people is just someone who's really like loyal and dependable as a friend, as a partner, as any sort of counterpart in a relationship.
Yeah.
And another one that I guess another 2 that I really resonate with recently are just like being kind.
Yeah.
Especially to people that you don't know as well. Just like being able to have compassion.
Yeah.
And also just being present. Being able to be a good listener and put all your attention and concentration into like what you're doing at the present moment.
Totally. Yeah, tell us if you wouldn't mind just a little bit about each one of these and how you continue to explore them and how they make you curious today.
Yeah. I think I have a partner who I feel like embodies all of these, and in some ways I think he shows me like a version of them that I want to be able to emulate. I think being present is one that, as I mentioned, like shows up a lot in these mutual activities that you do with people because it just gives you the space to do nothing except connect with each other. And I don't know, in a world where we're all like working off of screens and we have a million things going on at once, like having the space outside of work to just exist and be with the people that you're with is just so valuable.
Definitely.
Being kind. Been thinking about this one a lot, like in terms of like how my interactions with strangers happen on a day-to-day basis, and just things like driving. Like I have the worst road rage because I'm not an angry person, and so it's like it all has to come out somewhere, and it's just in the car. And so I've been using that as like moments to practice. Like, okay, that person didn't even know they cut me off, or like, you know, that person's probably like having a bad day, or like I do the same thing to someone else. So, you know, or just like we've been at like at restaurants recently in which someone, the waiter or the waitress is having like a terrible day, you can just tell. And
Yeah.
so we've just been writing them little notes on our whatever receipts,
Yeah.
and like
Yeah.
leaving them a nice tip, and just thinking about like how I can improve everyday interactions with people that I don't really like, I don't understand enough about to have true compassion for them in those ways that you do with people that you're close with.
Yeah.
And yeah, loyalty and dependability as a friend is just, I think that one is, I just really value. And I don't know if Erin told you this, but something that I talked to her about that it's like really, really resonates with me is like, to me, the definition of someone who's a good friend is someone that you see like frequently, like multiple times a week. And those people, I think, are surprised. Like sometimes it surprises me who ends up being those people for me. And a lot of times it's logistics. Like Erin and I get along because we have dogs that love each other, and we both have flexible schedules, and we both like will move around plans to be able to make time to see each other. And
Yeah.
But it's something that I value so much in people, is just like feeling like they're committed to our friendship in the same way that I am, because you just get to a point where you have a lot of friends and you have a lot of people to keep track of, and you can't do it all. And so just like I feel myself more and more the older I get wanting to pour my energy into people who are really, really reciprocating that back.
Totally. Do you have people, just curious if you have people you've found success with having that reciprocal relationship with, not in close proximity?
Yeah, yeah. And again, it's been surprising, but I have a really, really solid group of friends from high school and from college. So yeah, I find it all over the place.
Yeah, that's awesome. So there's still hope for our friends that are
Yes.
all over
Yeah,
the
I
country.
think so.
For sure.
And I think the flip side of that is like getting to a point where you feel okay letting go of some of those friendships that maybe aren't serving you in that way, which is
Totally.
so hard to do.
Totally.
But then it frees up that space to be able to basically like be a better friend for those people that you are getting it back from.
So important. So important to be able to just accept for ourselves and say, yeah, no, this is, I've tried, like I tried my best. I gave it a good amount of time, but I need to have grace for myself here too, and not just be somebody who's, I don't know, like giving more than I'm receiving. So yeah, I think that's so important. Totally agree.
Yeah.
The next question has to do with tension. And we all continue to experience tension in our stories and our journeys. And the next question is, where are your fears at in life?
Yeah, so many. I was just thinking about this the other day, like how when you're a teenager and someone asks you this question, you're like, what? I'm not afraid of anything. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm actually afraid of everything. One that's been top of mind that's a little bit like more surface level is like I'm really scared to get back on skis. So like that's scary. Was just chatting with my therapist about it this morning, and she was like, honestly, like you could go skiing. Like I think that you're ready. And it's really scary. It's really scary.
Yeah.
In a way that I've never expected like you have this activity that's so sacred and fun. I don't know if you feel this way about skiing, but
I do.
you
I
probably
very,
do, yeah.
very much do.
Like,
Yes.
it's just, to me, it's like this one sport. I have no sort of like competitive
Right.
feelings. Like there's nothing negative associated with it. And all of
Yeah.
a sudden it was like completely
Mm.
traumatizing in a way in which
Mm.
I'm like, I don't, like, I just want to have that fun back.
Yeah.
So that's scary.
Yeah.
Another thing that,
Did the ACL tear come from skiing?
yeah.
Oh, that makes it doubly worse. I thought it was okay. Oh no.
Yeah.
Dang. Yeah.
Oh, super rough.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but working through it. I think once I get back on skis a few times, hopefully it'll calm down.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Another one I think that's like a little more serious is, so my parents live in Missoula now. My mom grew up here, and so her parents are still here, and they're in their 90s. And so my parents moved back a few years ago. So it's like got the whole crew, which is fun. But just like watching my parents get old.
Yeah.
Something that has been scary and has become a lot more real, like now that we live so close to them and we see them so often. And yeah, just like imagining worlds in which they're like in their 70s, like it's just not something you've ever thought about.
Yeah.
So
right. Just happens. Yeah. Anything else you want to add to the list? Said you've been thinking about it. Typically I give people a space for like 2 to 4 in here. That seems to be a pretty good number.
Those are my really like the ones that have been top of mind for me.
Yeah, for sure. Let's go with the trickier one, I think. Or maybe the one that's just more relatable for people. How do you kind of manage the fear of, kind of watching your parents get older? And I'll keep it there, or else I'm going to be too leading with the question. Yeah.
My partner in particular is like very, he has like a very substantial mindfulness practice these days. And I think it's been really helpful with this one in particular. Like, it's so easy to just like spiral with it, to just be like, oh my God, like my dad is like having, his wrists are hurting and like, it must be so hard for him. And then it just like, it just brings up all these feelings in me, and it so easily like gets out of control. And I think just like being able to like step back and be like, okay, I don't have to identify with like everything that they're dealing with, like all I need to do is I had a therapist once who made this analogy, and I use it all the time because I think it's great. Like, I think it's great for like, I think she used it in the context of like dating someone with depression.
Okay.
Like, it applies in this scenario too, which is that like they're like at the bottom of a hole, like they got like trapped in there, and you can't do it. Like, you're standing up at the top, like you can't do anything. You're not gonna, like, it doesn't make any sense for you to jump down into the hole too. Like, all you can do is stand at the top and be like, you're doing a good job, keep climbing, and like throw them a Cliff Bar every once in a while.
Yeah.
And so I've been really just trying to like take a step back, take a breath, not try to like have such an emotional hang up on all of this as I'm watching it happening, and to just, again, like be able to just exist and be present in these situations and these times that we are sharing together that are great. And
I like that. As also as analogy for, I've been having a lot of conversations recently, for whatever reason, with people about the difference between empathy and compassion. And I think often empathy, it's like you're wearing other people's hardships, and that's it. And there's and you just want to be there for them. And while being there for people can be helpful, so can compassion, and sometimes even more so. I think we've learned for Amy, it's that Cliff Bar is a sour and some tacos. But just knowing even that much, right? can be the compassion that resonates with people more. Yeah, I'm just gonna sit with you here at the very bottom.
Totally.
Yeah, I love that illustration. That's awesome. Okay, so the next question. I like talking about fears because we're all going through something. But on the flip side of that, I think when it comes to our successes, we are also not all that we appear to be. So the next question is, what is something that you're proud of that not a lot of people know about?
So I recently did a ski race. It was like very low key. Like we're talking, I coach high school beginners on skis.
Okay.
The ski program, we put on a race for the kids. It was a skiathlon.
Yeah.
Like 2 laps skate, 2 laps classic. And
Uh-huh.
it was at the golf course. It was terrible conditions, like just a sheet of ice everywhere. The kids were miserable. They were all like sliding around. But I just jumped in this ski race because I had done one all year.
Yeah.
And I just like got to the end. It was a complete mess. Like I was wearing jean shorts and I fell really hard in the skate section. Like my knees were just like bleeding and stuff. And it was just like, I mean, it was like not competitive, it was like
Sure.
me and a bunch of moms out there. But I got to the end and I was just like so proud of myself because I was like, that's like it felt like a really big mental win to like get back to doing a ski race in the first place. And then also like actually like falling really hard and like nothing dramatic happened to my knees,
Right,
like
right. Yeah.
I totally was in this petrified state for a long time where I was like, if I like slip and fall on the ice, I will tear all of the ligaments
Right.
in my body. You know, like you get totally out of control. And so just getting to the end of that and being like, oh my God, I did it. Like,
Yeah.
it was like such a low key thing. But I was just like really excited about getting to the end and not having like, nothing happened. Like I survived.
That's awesome.
So.
When you saw the conditions like that before the race, I mean, you probably had a chance to say no.
Yeah, but I just,
Was that in your head?
it was like I needed to prove to myself that I could do it.
Yeah.
That I could like get back on skis and do something fast and like really commit to it. And so.
Yes. Yeah. That's a great win. Yes. Right on. All right. Well, you've been very generous sharing us a fantastic journey and some awesome stories. At this point, we would love to receive any words of wisdom, some life advice from you. This could be something that you live by, something you've read in a book, anything really. Yeah.
It's basically exactly what you just were talking about with the difference between compassion and empathy. I was recently telling my partner, I was talking to him about a situation in which I had a friend where I felt like I needed to communicate, like, basically I needed to like give her some tough love. Like I needed to say something that was going to be really hard for her to hear, but I felt like that was like the right, like the nice thing to do in the end. And he said to me that he was like, compassion just really can look really different for different people and for different situations. And that really resonated with me. I was like, oh my God, you're so right. Like sometimes you think about it as this one size fits all kind of term.
Yeah.
But in reality, like, it's just like the way of being compassion is not a way. It's just like there are so many different scenarios and different people in which being like a kind human to them means something so different. And I think that was very freeing to think about it that way.
That is so good.
Yeah. Right?
That's so
Wish it came out of my
good.
mouth, but it didn't.
So exploring different ways of being compassionate is freeing. Different forms, different ways of being kind.
like
To
not
express compassion can feel freeing.
right. And like sometimes that is being compassionate doesn't mean making the other person feel good. That was my big
Right.
takeaway.
Right.
Like it's so easy to just be a people pleaser and to be like, okay,
Mm.
the best way that I can support my friends is by like holding them up, and that's not always, it's just not always true. In the same
Yeah.
way that like you want like an advisor or a physical therapist to be someone who you're like a little bit scared of because you want them to be hard on you in specific situations, like you almost can say you almost like need that from your friends too.
Uh-huh. Definitely. I'm thinking of like the extreme version of this, and it's kind of funny because I don't know. I think guys struggle with, expressing feelings. That might be a generalization, but I think it's pretty true.
Yeah.
And it's just funny because I can hear guys like just in my head saying to each other just like just just bashful comments. That's not even in the same vein of like the freeing tough love that you're talking about. It's just like guys just like really struggling to hit that mark, and this is kind of
Yes.
making me laugh right now. Wish I had like a good
It's
example
so
off the top of
true
my head, but
though.
yeah. um all right, well, that's awesome. I'm gonna be thinking about that for a while. I'll probably have some comments on it at the end, but as I'm hanging on to a thought that caught my ear, I think it's actually a good time to then segue into our final question. This is my favorite question, and probably by itself the reason why I keep doing this. And that question is, what's the best compliment that somebody could give you?
You know, I was gonna say something. Well, what I was gonna say is that I really I really appreciate when people compliment me on like my work ethic and say things like, oh, like you're very determined, like you worked really hard on this,
Mm-hmm.
etc. But then hearing Erin's message, I was like, oh, I really like that is really meaningful to me also to hear someone say something that's a lot more like kind of not fluffy, but like that's what it comes to mind, like as a feeling, a little like fuzzy.
Yeah.
To just have someone talk about like how I have improved their capacity to talk about hard things and to be able to be more open about like basically everything that we've talked about today. Like that is really meaningful also.
Yeah. Beautifully said. Beautifully said, Amy. Give me 1 second. Just gonna do a little recap here. Um, Today I learned from somebody, Amy, who is very curious about how to be present for people. All of her core values had to do really with others and community, being there for people, kindness, being present, at least in the forms that we talked about them today. Um, and then somebody who's has a natural curiosity for limits, and then somewhere in the merging of those things, they've merged beautifully at what you said at the end there of being able to help increase the capacity of others. And what I learned today was that there is so much to learn about how to do that through the lens of compassion. And I'm going to be thinking about that a long time because um, my second core value in life is compassion. Um, and just thinking about it in terms of, man, what are the other ways that I can meet the needs of people, not in a people pleasing way, but in a way that increases their capacity. What a awesome way to get, for me personally, to get to rethink compassion. And so for that, yeah, thank you. That was an awesome, awesome call.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Um, all right, we're at the end, where you now get to honor somebody else. Have you thought about who you'd like to honor?
Yeah. Do you want it to be like a running human?
That is the objective for,
Okay.
yes, this series.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I have the perfect person.
Okay, fantastic. Who is this person? And just tell us a little bit about your relationship with them.
Yeah. Her name is Leah Ling. She is the most like unique friend that I've ever had, and one of my bests. She was like my first real Missoula friend that I met here through kind of like a friend of our friend or a friend. The first time we hung out, we went for this like 8-mile run together. Talk about like uninterrupted time with someone who you just, the first vibe you get from them is like, this girl might hate me. So we spent a full, like, over an hour on this run together.
Yeah.
And when I got to the end, I thought to myself, I might never see her again.
Nailed
And
it.
then,
Yes.
and then she left for the whole summer. We didn't talk for like 3 months. And then somehow she came back and we just started doing things together. And now we're best friends.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Right on.
She is basically expressionless,
Okay.
which is why you get the sense that she hates you.
Okay.
And she also is like, she's just like, she's not a hugger. Makes that very clear. She just is like affectionate in ways that took me a really long time to figure out, but were very gratifying once you got there. And she's just a rock star. She just moved down to Salt Lake. She's doing her residency for like for PT. She does like neuro PT stuff.
Wow. Yeah.
And yeah, I just love it. I just
Looking
have
forward
nothing
to
but
it.
good things to say. Yeah.
Okay. When you see the camera go, it's all yours.
Okay. Leah, I honor you for your humor and your loyalty as a friend. Man, I just really, truly have never had a friend like you. A friend in which I just never really know when you pick up the phone and just say, hey, whether you actually want to talk to me at all. Never had a friend who hasn't seen me in 6 months and I just have to beg on my hands and knees to get a hug. Truly something special. But also just a friend who, like, I just really feel like I can't express how much you mean to me and how much I love you. And it's really something that I don't like doing to your face because I think you hate it. But truly, like, I could spend every day hanging out with you, and it's been really like a tough last year having you be so far away. I hope that we don't have to go the rest of our lives like that. And you've taught me a lot about just like how to be a grown-up, how to be an adult, and how to just like navigate life. We've been through some rough times over the last few years, but also just a lot of good ones. And I truly don't laugh harder than I do when I'm with you, whether that's pushing bikes up some absurd climb or being enabled into buying $300 worth of clothes at REI for no reason. It's just really fun doing life with you. So I honor you.
Thanks again to Amy for sharing her story with us on today's episode. I particularly enjoyed talking to her about limits. A couple of things that stood out to me. First, the value of being able to prove to yourself that you can always come back to being intact. I wasn't sure when I heard that, if that was a glass half full or half empty kind of perspective. And when I asked Amy about it, I feel like her response was about appreciating the water that's there. That it's clear, that it's still, that it's healthy. I really liked that. Second, I loved hearing her talk about how compassion looks different for different people in different situations. Sometimes you might be the bearer of good news. Other times you might be the one who has some tough perspective. That was encouraging because, if I'm being honest, I want to care for my friends more than by making them smile. Mostly because I'm not funny, but it fortified that finding other ways to love my friends is worth exploring. Anyways, that's how I felt after this one, but I'd love to hear what stood out to you. Let me know in the comments. And remember, it's never a bad time to reconnect with someone you've been meaning to reach out to. See you guys in the next one.